Hi, I'm Todd Henderson. Today we're going to install the ICI Magnum RT Steps on this 2016 Ram 2500 Crew Cab. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now underneath the Ram, there's a few different scenarios you can run into. This is one of them. This is one of our mounting locations. What we've got here is a couple of hexagon-shaped holes. Above here, we've got a piece of tape covering up another hole. That hole is an oval-shaped hole. I'm going to pull that piece of tape out of the way so we can see that, because I'm going to need to access that hole. Now, you might also have some inserted nuts or some nutserts that are in there that give threaded inserts for attaching bolts. This one does not have it. I will show you that later there. Now, with this scenario, to attach the brackets, you're going to need what they call their triple T insert, and what that's going to do is going to slide in to your rocker panel about like so. Then when it comes in, you're going to have two holes that line up to your threaded holes here, and you've got your bolt coming out the top. Now, to hold that in place, we're going to take and install a plastic retainer washer. Now, some guys are really good at just kind of throwing the bracket in place and holding it. The plastic retainer washer just kind of holds this fastener to where it can't fall back into your rocker panel. So up to you how you want to do it. I'm just going to, for the video here, show you how to install the plastic retainer washer. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to raise our bracket. Now this is going to be the front or center bracket here that I've got. We're going to raise it up, and you got some slotted holes. They're going to slide right over top of the bolt. Now, as you notice, I just bumped it, and I messed up my alignment on these smaller holes. So what we're going to do before we do anything else is I'm going to take an 8mm bolt with a flat washer and a lock washer. And the flat washer I'm using is a smaller flat washer. There are some washers that come in your kit that are larger than that. You're not using that on this application. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to thread these in here finger tight for right now. And once we've got those two bottom bolts threaded in finger tight, we're going to go ahead and attach a flat washer, lock washer, and nut to the top bolt. All right, next what we're going to do is we're going to install our pinch weld support bracket. We've got a couple of holes that are in the pinch weld here. So what we're going to do is we're going to line this bracket up to those holes. Now, if your truck does not have those holes, you don't necessarily have to use this bracket. You can skip using this bracket, but I will say that this bracket definitely stiffens up the feel of the step. So if you don't have the holes, you can drill it with a 1/4 inch drill bit. If you do have the holes, definitely use that. We've got some long 6mm bolts. Now you've got also some smaller 6mm bolts in the kit too. We're not using that right now. We got a long 6mm bolt with a small washer that's going to go through your pinch weld. We're going to put two of them through there. Once those are in place, we're going to put some small flat washers, lock washers, and nuts on top of that. All right, next what we're going to do is we're going to take our shorter 6mm bolt with a flat washer. We're going to go through the side. We're going to force the bracket up to where that lock lines up to the hole in the main bracket. Then we're going to put a flat washer and lock washer on that, and then also a small nut. We're going to do that on both sides of this bracket. All right, now this assembly we're going to keep finger tight. We're not going to lock everything down just yet. We still want to have the ability to adjust it up and down, and we need to also be able to set our brackets or our board in place as well. All right, now here is your second scenario. This is also the rear bracket, so I'm actually going to show you how to install the rear bracket at the same time. Now this scenario, you've got those threaded inserts I was telling you about earlier, and these are also properly installed threaded inserts. So whenever you're installing this bracket, what you're going to do is, instead of using the triple T fastener, you're going to use a larger bolt plate. So this is actually a 10mm bolt. In your kit, you've got two different sizes of plastic retainer washers. This is going to be for the 10mm retainer washer. So it's a little bit larger. This is going to work on this bolt plate. It's not going to fit well on that triple T. So we've got that installed here. I'm going to go ahead and drop it into the rocker panel. I want to get this to where it's straight up and down. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish tightening this down. Now that's just going to kind of hold our bolt plate in place so it doesn't fall back into the rocker panel. Next, what we want to do is go ahead and raise up our rear bracket. Now, at this point, what we've got going on is we've got our threaded inserts. We've also, on this truck, we've got holes in the pinch weld. If I did not have holes in the pinch weld and I did not want to use pinch weld, if I didn't want to drill those holes, I would not use this additional bracket. This additional bracket just lines up to one of the holes in the pinch weld, and then allows me to have the extra support with the pinch weld. So if I just had these, if you notice, these are very large holes here. If I was just using these three locations, my bottom bolts here would not use these small washers. It would actually use the larger washers that are in the kit. But because I've got the threaded holes and I've got holes in my pinch weld, I'm going to use this bracket, and so I'm going to use the smaller washers in this scenario. And again, just like the last bracket, I'm going to line up the bolts on the bottom first. Just get them finger tight. And then I'm going to use flat washer, lock washer, and nut on the top. Now this is something worth mentioning too. This top washer, this is for a 10mm bolt, so it's got a larger hole than the washers down below. These are for an 8mm. So make sure you use the correct washer for the application for the correct bolt. And again, we're just going to put this on hand tight for right now. Now again, because we're attaching this pinch weld bracket, we're going to go with the longer 6mm bolts and a flat washer, go up through the bottom of the pinch weld, and then again we're going to use the small flat washer, small lock washer, and small nut, and tighten those down just hand tight as well. Now at this point on this bracket, we're not wanting to lock this down all the way because we still want to be able to adjust a little bit. But it is a good idea that as you're trying to hand tighten this stuff, go ahead and hold the bracket up, because this bracket needs to push all the way up against the bottom of that bend in the rocker panel. And tighten these down nice and tight with your fingers. That way it's not shifting around all over the place. This will make it a lot easier to adjust the board once you get the board attached. All right, now here's your third scenario. Now this is also your front bracket, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to install the front bracket too. But first I'm going to focus on this scenario. So we've got our threaded inserts, but these threaded inserts aren't flush. They're actually kind of raised out a little bit. Now, if I just installed the bracket over top of that, that would throw off the angle of the bracket because this is actually raised out from the base. So I don't want to do that. I want to make sure I accommodate that. Essentially what's happened here is these were installed wrong, probably from a dealership. If a dealership installs running boards onto your truck and it doesn't have the threaded inserts and they install the threaded inserts wrong, it actually draws the threaded insert out instead of mounting it flush to your rocker panel. So you can either drill these out, pry them out, or you can use a different scenario that I'm going to show you here in just a second. So what we're going to do here, we're going to use these threaded inserts. I'm going to use this, the 10 millimeter bolt plate. Drop it down into place. I'm going to tighten this just like we did the last one. Now again, I've got this bolt plate straight up and down, so the bottom of the bolt plate is actually right in between these two nutserts. Now, since these nutserts are kind of pushed away and we want to make sure we keep the right spacing, what I'm going to do is I've got a spacer that's going to slide right over here. It's going to be about equal to the same spacing from the incorrectly installed nutserts. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and continue with the installation of the bracket the same way I would do normally. We've got the 8 millimeter bolts with flat washer and lock washer. I'm going to go ahead and thread it into those nutserts. And we're also going to use our 10 millimeter washer, lock washer, and nut on the front. And we're putting that in there hand tight as well. Now we can go ahead and install our pinch weld bracket the exact same way as we installed the last pinch weld bracket that was on the center bracket location. All right, now we've got our passenger side board here. Now you're going to notice at the front of that board we've got a little bit of a cutout that's meant to go around your fender flare. So what we're going to do, this is also very helpful to get a second set of hands to hold the board in place for you while you're lining everything up. So these two holes in the bracket here that are oval shaped holes are going to line up to the holes in the bracket that are on the truck. Now before I line those up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bolt, 8 millimeter bolt with flat washer, and I'm going to put them through each of these holes. Then I'm going to line them up to the holes in the running board. On each one of those bolts, I'm going to do a flat washer, lock washer, and nut. Just put them on finger tight for right now. We do not want to lock them down just yet. We still have to adjust things. Next, what I like to do is I like to go back to the very last bracket and get that one lined up so the center one lines up a lot easier. All right, now with the rear bracket, we've got the exact same scenario where we've got a bracket that's actually welded in place behind the board. We're going to take the 8 millimeter bolt with flat washer, run it through, and again, flat washer, lock washer, and nut on each one of these bolts. Now for the center bracket, more of the same. Again, the 8 millimeter bolts with flat washers. I'm going to line them up to the holes. All right, now we got all the boards lined up to the brackets and hand tight, and all the brackets are lined up to the truck hand tight. We're gonna go ahead and line everything up and then tighten everything down. Make whatever adjustments that are needed. All right, next what we want to do is go ahead and tighten down the boards to the brackets using a 13 millimeter. Now what I like to do is I like to line up the boards to the brackets, make sure they're even on both sides, and then we're going to use a 13 millimeter socket on one side while we hold the other side with a 13 millimeter wrench. All right, now that we have our running board tightened down to all three of our brackets, we're gonna go ahead and move up and tighten down the bracket to the truck, also using a 13 millimeter. All right, next we're gonna go ahead and tighten down the pinch weld support brace to the pinch weld. We're gonna use a 10 millimeter box end wrench at the base of it, and I like to use a 10 millimeter ratcheting wrench up at the top. That way it just goes a little quicker. All right, and lastly, we're gonna go ahead and tighten down our pinch weld brace to our main bracket. Also using 10 millimeter box end wrench and 10 millimeter ratchet. All right, now once we got all the brackets tightened down, let's go to the opposite side and repeat the exact same process. Well, that concludes the installation. If you have any questions, call the experts. We're here to help you out.